I wonder if it's the stress that you feel or what that is. 46 minutes after the hour, President Obama promising action in both Ukraine and against ISIS at the NATO summit last week.
We have to act as part of the international community to degrade and ultimately destroy ISIL. Here in Wales, we also sent a strong message to Russia that actions have consequences. Big countries can't just stomp on little countries.
But will the president follow up on his tough talk with some real action? Here to weigh in is editor-in-chief of truthrevolt.org, Ben Shapiro. Ben, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much.
A little less talk and a lot more action is what some would say. What do you make of these speeches?
Well, the president has been making these sort of comments about Ukraine for months on end at this point. When he says that big countries can't just walk over little countries, well, I think Ukraine would beg to differ, given that President Putin has already annexed the Crimea and invaded eastern Ukraine. The president has also made similar statements about countries ranging from Syria, where he said that there was a red line that could not be crossed, to Iran, where he said that we would do everything in our power to stop Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon, neither of which has actually had any sort of ramifications.
So speaking of Iran, here I want to put up for our viewers exactly what the president promised he was going to do about that country's nuclear program. Watch.
Make no mistake, a nuclear-armed Iran is not a challenge that can be contained. That's why a coalition of countries is holding the Iranian government accountable. And that's why the United States will do what we must to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
Where's that coalition of countries and what are they doing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the idea that the coalition of countries is doing anything is ridiculous, given that the president of the United States basically handed over all foreign policy in the Middle East to Russia, and right now our situation with Iran is this. We delayed them by about 3 months in getting a nuclear weapon while loosening sanctions and then providing them basically a second home base in Iraq, where they've essentially taken over the Iraqi government. So the fact is the president likes to speak huge and carry the world's tiniest stick. I mean, he is the reverse Teddy Roosevelt, and I think the world knows it at this point.
All right, Ben, we're going to move on to Syria. In 2012, and the president said there would be enormous consequences if chemical weapons were used. Let's take a listen to that.
We have communicated in no uncertain terms with every player in the region that that's a red line for us, and that there would be enormous consequences if we start seeing movement on the chemical weapons front or the use of chemical weapons.
I guess that red line was a bit of a fuzzy red line. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's more of a mauve line. The president of the United States obviously has done nothing to remove President Assad from power. He just signed on to a new 7-year term. And as far as our support for the opposition in Syria, well, that's ended, at least in part, in the rise of ISIS in that region. Unfortunately, the president of the United States has an unfortunate habit of making very, very loud statements about what he wants to do. But he always uses the fig leaf of the international community. So you notice in all of these statements, he always says, in cooperation with our partners, in cooperation with the international community. Well, what if the international community doesn't want to do something that's in America's interest? Who exactly has veto power over America's national security interests should be the question we're all asking at this point.
That's a great question. Ben Shapiro, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much.